everybody. Welcome back to Antioch Christian Church's podcast called Cover to Cover, where we are going to journey together through the book of Exodus. Today, I'm joined with my friend Carl Lipke. He's our Old Wine campus pastor, and we just want to set the stage. We're in Exodus chapter 1 and chapter 2. One of the things that we love about our church is that Pastor Jason is someone who wants us to receive the entire counsel of scriptures. We did a year in Acts, we did a year in Leviticus. This year, Pastor Jason is advantageous. We're going to do Exodus, Romans, and Revelation. So what we thought is that me and some of my friends, we can sit together and just talk about the scriptures. And so my hope would be this would redeem your commute, that as you drive to work, that as you are doing the laundry, as you're walking around your university campus, that you would be able to just plug in your earphones, AirPods, headphones.
Whatever you got.
Yeah. Turn your volume up loud on the airplane.
Yell at Alexa on your countertop.
Dude, Alexa is the worst. High key. I
hate it. I turn it around so it doesn't.
Oh, I got rid of it.
Oh, I'd
We
love
had
to.
it for almost 2 days.
Amy just uses
gone.
it for recipes. Alexa, put 5 minutes on the timer. I just turn the thing around. I hate it.
No bueno. So as we go through Exodus 1 and 2 today, my name is Skylar, one of our pastors. I get the joy of overseeing our campuses. I'm joined by my friend Carl, who's our Old Wine campus pastor. And I just hope that this would be a blessing to you. So, Carl, would you just kind of start us off with Exodus chapter 1?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And, I recognize this is the first podcast we're doing through a book, to try to coincide with a message series. You might think, well, Genesis is the first book of the Bible. Why don't you start in Genesis? Why Exodus? Why book 2? I don't know. That's what God was speaking to our pastor. And like Skylar said, it's an adventurous kind of undertaking to go through the book of Exodus because it's not a short book, but there is a lot of richness to this. And so what we want to do with this podcast is it allows us to, I don't know if the right phrase is slow it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But when Jason's going on the fly on Sundays, he's a fast talker, which I am as well. But it's tough to capture everything in 30 minutes, and you can't really get every idea or every thought into just a 30-minute message. So when we do these podcasts to kind of break down a little more, if you will, these books as we go through them, I think it allows us to slow it down, maybe add some more color to this, and again, just encourage everybody in their reading, that's what Jason was talking about, or, oh, wow, I didn't know that was part of Exodus, and we can fill in some of those gaps.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for me, the joy of Old Testament stuff, and, it was, I can't believe I didn't know this younger growing up in church, but it wasn't even until seminary that I had a professor tell me that you will not understand the New Testament very well until you do a better job of understanding the Old Testament.
Oh, 100%.
Right, because there's a common understanding that we live in this New Testament, New Covenant era. Since Jesus rose from the grave, he ascended into heaven. We're still in the New Covenant era. And even my mom said when I was back in college, she's like, "Does that mean that we ignore the Old Testament?" Well, of course not. There's just a lot more history to read through in the Old Testament, but that shouldn't make it boring. The thing that I love about the Old Testament is more that, yes, it is some history, or it's hugely history, but what I think we need to be careful of is to think that it doesn't apply, that we cannot learn from what they went through. And from years of being a pastor, and actually a lot of years being a children's pastor, where you're kind of, you're swimming in dramas and plays and skits and things like that. One of the things that was kind of a pet peeve of mine is when people would call like Moses or Aaron or Adam or Paul or John, they would call them characters.
Yeah. Say more about that.
In the Bible. And because I think that gives us the impression that they're not real. Because we're used to seeing TV shows, cartoons, plays at school, and people play characters. They play roles. And I think when we use that word, again, it's a personal thing. Some people might not have a problem with it. For me, it's a personal thing. I don't want to look at Moses as just some character.
Right.
He's actually a real person from history that God worked through in a magnificent way to help free his people, the Israelites, from this slavery in Egypt, which is the lion's share of the story of the book of Exodus. They're exiting out of slavery in the land of Egypt, which is how we end up picking this up. So that's just a personal thing for me. I don't like the word character. I want to know that I'm reading about real people that really lived, really struggled, had a real relationship with God. The same God that we talk to is the same God who talked to Moses. And I love that connection.
Yeah, I would agree. When we look at the Old Testament, I think people want to learn the scriptures. I think sometimes it's like, if you guys remember when we did Jonah a couple years ago, the only thing we know about Jonah is that he got swallowed up by a fish. But when you read it, you're like, oh, there's so much more. I know we went through at 1824, our young adult ministry, we went through Judges, and it was like, whoa, I didn't even know that was in the Bible. So I think as we journey through Exodus, you're going to see the faith of a man who was up and it was down, who God did miraculous things. And I hope that you can see the common thread. But what I love about the Bible is that archaeologically, all these places are real. The timeline matches up. So this is not a fabrication. This is not fiction. This is the true word of God. And so again, we want the whole counsel of Scripture. So what we're going to do is just kind of talk about like what stuck out to you in like Exodus 1 and 2, and then what stuck out to me is Exodus 1 and 2, because Pastor Jason is going to preach and he's going to get us through it. As you guys know from Sunday yesterday, Pastor Jason, he started us in Exodus 19, and so we want to do is chronologically start from the beginning and go on. But Pastor Jason is going to ultimately come back to Exodus 1. And so as we start together, I just hope you would feel comfortable with this. Grab your Bible, get your place, get your method, get the Bible out. So what are some things that stuck out to you in Exodus chapter 1 and chapter 2?
When I kind of went back through this, just again to remind myself and a refresher, this is again when we talked in the last podcast. For me personally, I like using a study Bible. There's just always a couple extra notes that fill in the blanks that, dang, I forgot that, when I went through it last time, or it's been a while. So even like the very beginning, like my subtitle in chapter 1 is Slavery in Egypt. Well, right off that is a difficult word in our modern day culture. And I'm like, well, how does that relate to my life? How can I connect to that? I'm not a slave in Egypt. Okay, well, there's got to be more to it than just that. Yes, it's the story of how God's people, the Israelites, were enslaved by the Egyptians, but how does that connect to my life? Okay, well, I'm not necessarily a slave in Egypt, but as you start reading some of these notes in your study Bible, it says, yes, as we see God delivering Israel from Egypt, we need to understand that through Christ, he ultimately delivers us from our slavery to our propensity to sin. I'm like, there's a connection. So I can relate to that. And when you would understand, Moses was not a perfect man. He gets lifted up, okay, he's one of the patriarchs, all the things, great. But he was a very imperfect man. And so even connecting with that, God can use you in mighty ways, even though you have a checkered past. I mean, he murdered a guy. For goodness sakes. And yet God still called him out.
Right in the beginning of the book.
Right in the beginning of the book.
Like there's not a good story arc. It's not you fall in love with them, and then it's great, and then,
there's not a lot of warm fuzzy at the beginning.
It's just like, bam, done.
But then God redeems him, and then through that and grows him, ultimately God uses him in mighty ways, leadership-wise to eventually lead God's people out of that slavery and that oppression that they'd been in Egypt for 430-ish years? Long time. Long time. So that's the thing that it helps me as I get a refresher. This is where we're at. This is what was going on. And this is the why it's such a big deal, even in my life still today. So if you want me to press further, I mean, we're not going to go line by line by line. That would be boring and hop around. So here's a way that I'll look contextually. How does this work in my life? So you get this understanding that God's people are enslaved in Egypt, right? They're oppressed. They're crying out to God. This stinks. And ultimately God hears their cries and wants to do something about it, which again, he ends up working through Moses. But when I look at verse 8, it says this, and then a new king who did not know about Joseph. And you're like, well, wait, where did Joseph come from? I thought we were talking about Moses. Well, if you finished up the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, the longest concurrent running story in the Bible is the story of Joseph. Donny Osmond gets a lot of fame for the Technicolor Dreamcoat. I'm old, right? It's a Broadway show and all the things, right? Joseph and the Colored Coat.
So I'm not supposed to know who this guy is.
Well, you're young, you probably don't know, but there's probably at least 3 listeners that know what I'm talking about.
Young. I know the play. He wrote the play.
Basically.
Okay.
Right. That's why Joseph is involved, because Joseph is now in Egypt as well. So this new king who does not know the protection that Joseph had under the last king, Pharaoh, a new king who did not know Joseph came into power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, this is verse 9. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, they will join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. And so this new king is worried that the Israelites are populating at such a high rate because there's a lot of them. He's worried they're going to overpower them. He's going to lose his reign. He's going to lose his kingship, or he's just going to lose all this servanthood that they're enslaved to do to take care of the Egyptians. So my side note, again, as I write on my margin, this king is obviously afraid for these people getting too big. And so my little note simply says this: fear often causes irrational decisions or harmful decisions. Because as we continue in the book, we start to see this king is scared. He's worried that they're going to overpower them. He starts making some very shrewd, awful decisions that, hurt God's people. as he puts further restrictions on their daily work.
Yep.
And again, it's all fear-based. And I think that connects into our own modern day life, that fear makes us sometimes do irrational things.
Oh, yeah. And that's one of the things, like, as I read verses 18 through like 21, then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this, and let the boys live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for the Hebrew women are vigorous. They gave birth before the midwives gets to them. So God treated the midwives well, and the people multiplied and became very strong. And because the midwives feared God, he made households for them." And so, like, there was multiplication, and then there was persecution. And so there's this phrase in the church where the blood of the martyrs, that's what makes the church grow faster. And there's just so many things in the New Testament I think about, like, blessed are you when you're persecuted for my name's sake, something that Jesus said. I think about 2 Timothy 3 and 4, where it's, if you want to live a godly lifestyle, you will be persecuted. And so as I look at this story, it's like, oh yeah, we could be afraid of like certain people. You might be afraid of your boss. You might be afraid of like your parents or different things, but we don't want to act in a way of fear of like, oh, because I'm afraid of them, I'm going to do this. It says in Proverbs, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. And friends, I would just encourage you, like, God is good. He is majestic. He is mighty. He is holy. He is strong. He is powerful, and he hears you. He hears you. Friends, we're going to talk about that in chapter 2. He hears you, but when they say they feared God, that is a recognition of who God is. There's a fear of like his power and his might, but it's also like there is respect in there. And so as you read the fear of the Lord, I just would encourage you, like, we do respect God more than anything else. We fear God more than anything else. And so as you read verse 20, I think this could be like they're afraid of God. And I sometimes hear people say things like, God, the Old Testament is cranky, and then he had a son in the New Testament, and then he chilled out. And it's like, it's not true. Like, God has been the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so as we see this, God is blessing them in the midst of persecution. So if you're in a hard season, God could still bless you. God, what he wants to get done is going to get done. You're not big enough to ruin it. Neither is your boss.
That's a good point.
When you are afraid, man, I would encourage you to bring it to the Lord. 1 Peter, right? We lay down our anxieties. We cast our anxieties upon the Lord, for he cares for
you. Yeah.
It's the same word when Jesus when he gets onto the donkey before Jerusalem. And so we just want to like lay that before him. So what else kind of pops out to you?
Yeah, to piggyback on what you're talking about with the midwives, again, the Bible is raw. There's difficult things to understand in there. And
100%.
Pharaoh, again, this idea of Pharaoh, the king, being so scared and afeared of the Israelites becoming too numerous and overtaking them, per se, he wanted no more boys for the Israelites born, because then they would grow up and have more Israelite babies. Yeah. And so he wanted them eradicated. So the beauty of the midwives is what they put into practice is they loved and feared and obeyed God more than a human ruler.
100%.
And then by doing that, what we see, and again, this is how it applies, how the note that I wrote here in blue, God rewards faithful obedience and decisions in our lives. God will bless and God will reward when we stand up for what is right. Now, that may look very different in your life compared to my life, and I'm not saying that God's our genie, and if I make a good decision, he's going to snap his fingers and I get a new car.
100%.
Right? That's not my point, but we definitely see it very clearly. Wow. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. He blessed them for obeying him over these wicked rulers. Yeah. And so sometimes you have to kind of weed through some of those hard things to really see the blessing and the character and nature of God still in the scriptures, even though sometimes it's like, wow, that's a really rough story.
Yeah. I mean, a quick hot take for me would be, I sometimes run into people and they'll say, everything happens for a reason. And lovingly, if you believe that, I would say that you are, I would encourage you just to reconsider your stance. Because I think what happens when people come to us as like pastor people and they say everything happens for a reason, it really is like they're like get out of jail free card. It's like everything is God's fault. And I don't believe that. I do believe God can redeem anything. So if everything happens for a reason, as we look at Exodus, terrible things are happening. And to say everything happens for a reason, and to say like, oh, this is all God's fault, like I know, like the king made the order, the king did this. We have free will.
A wicked king who did not follow God made this decree.
And as two of your pastors here, like we sin too, and we mess up our relationships, and we mess ourselves up, and so. I just want to really encourage us, like God can redeem anything. You look at Joseph, you look at Jesus, you look at Job, you look at Moses, because Moses is about to screw up. Like, if we're going to jump all over, I'll jump over to chapter 2, 14. actually chapter 2:11. In those days, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and observed their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian man attacking a Hebrew man, one of his own people. He looked this way and saw that no one was there, and then he attacked the Egyptian and concealed the body in the sand. When he went out the next day, there were 2 Hebrew men fighting. So he said to the one who was wrong, "Why are you attacking your fellow Hebrew?" The man replied, "Who made you a ruler and a judge over us? Are you planning to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid, thinking, "Surely what I did has become known." When Pharaoh heard about this event, he sought to kill Moses. So Moses fled from Pharaoh and settled in the land of Midian, and he settled by a certain well. And a ruler expects loyalty, and a judge has the right to say what to do. But what's interesting is that Moses, like, he's about to go on the attack, and he looks left and he looks right. And friends, we do the same thing. Like, we are sinning and we know it, but we do it anyway. It's called transgression. Like, we know where the line is, we crossed it anyway. That might be you lost your temper on a loved one, you screamed to cuss at them. That might be you were around the work cooler and you just wanted to have a better story, so you exaggerated the story. There's just a handful of things. But man, God could look at Moses and say, wow, like he premeditated this terrible, angry thing. He's out. But God doesn't do that. Now, we don't have the license to do that because we're reminded in Romans, like, should we sin more because grace abounds? No. Right. We should, like, be thankful. But what I think is interesting is that Moses, he makes a sin decision and then he flees. He flees from consequence.
And we do the same thing. We run away. We try to hide from consequences.
Yeah.
You know.
But man, it'd be so much better if Moses would have just like stayed there and like dealt with it. Instead, he goes away for a long time and then he comes back. And I would just encourage you, if you're in a spot today where you're thinking about stuff, bring it to the light. If you did something and you're like trying to bury it, people are going to see it. But I mean, what else kind of sticks out to you in chapters 1 and 2?
Well, what I'm curious about is Moses' life is kind of in 40-year chunks.
Right.
So this killing of the other Egyptian beating up a fellow Hebrew.
Yeah.
Moses is 40-ish.
Yep.
Okay, and he flees. He runs to Midian, and there's another 40 years where he's in the wilderness, just taking care of basically livestock before God speaks to him in the famous burning bush episode. Even a lot of non-Christians or non-believers sort of know about the story of Moses and the burning bush. And so what's curious to me, I wonder if after Moses, kills this guy at 40-ish, if he'd have repented and sought the Lord, if it wouldn't have taken 40 years of wandering in the wilderness of consequences, basically, before God, in a sense, restores him. Maybe not. That's conjecture. But what I want people to understand and how this connects to your life and my life, there's forgiveness from your sin. Yes, we still face consequences, but that doesn't make you unusable in the long term. So don't run away and flee, just because you screwed up royally. We all do. We all have. And that's the beauty of God's grace, is nobody is too far gone.
Right.
Nobody is too far away to receive God's grace. And so don't run, don't hide, bring it into the light and let God redeem you. Because again, if he can redeem a murderer, he still had consequences, don't get me wrong.
Oh, 100%.
But God redeemed him, at the 80-year mark, and then employed him into big-time ministry.
Yeah, and if we were to stay here for like another second, like murderer, like let's be really clear, like one of like the famous people of the scriptures, we know the burning bush thing.
Oh, hero to the Jewish culture and the Israelites.
When I was young, there was the Prince of Egypt movie that came out in the theaters.
Oh, yeah.
And like my family doesn't love Jesus. We didn't do church growing up, and we went and saw that movie for some reason. Okay. And so like the murderer was redeemed. God can redeem anyone, anything. And I sometimes think people are like, if I'm not in my 20s, like God can't use me. And I would just like really encourage you, like, if you're like, I've heard so many people say like, oh, life's downhill after 30. And it's like, no.
You're just coming into some sweet spots. I have people just connecting into ministry at my church in their mid 60s, and they are so on fire. They can't wait to do more. We had a gal just join women's group for the first time. She's mid 60s, and she's like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this sooner?
100%.
And it, like in tears of joy.
Yep.
And she just cannot wait to do more.
Yeah. Your age does not limit you to what God can do. And if you're young, you're like, oh man, I didn't go to Bible college. I'm not 80 years old. Like, man, listen, and it says in 1 Timothy, like, you're never too young to be used. And so I would just encourage y'all to be obedient. We've got like 2 minutes left. So I would love to just look at the last part of Exodus. Chapter 2 says, during that long period of time, so this is after he runs away, And now Moses, like he grew up in Pharaoh's house, super posh, super bougie. Now he's doing the hardest work he's ever done in his life. During that long period of time, the king of Egypt died, and the Israelites groaned because of the slave labor. They cried out, and their desperate cry because of their slave labor went up to God. God heard their groaning. He remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, with Jacob. God saw the Israelites, and God understood. So this isn't like God forgot. Like I lose my keys sometimes, or like I'll have my phone in my face and then like I'll forget where my phone is. It's super frustrating. God didn't like go, oh, I remember my covenant, but it's like almost like giving it more attention. And so I think some people try to get hype on the word like God remembered, but I think the bigger thing is like God hears.
Yeah.
And so, man, as you look at this, if you are like, I'm in the pits, life is hard, life is difficult, I feel like I'm like a slave to my sin. I feel like people are persecuting me. I feel like things are difficult. I feel like there's things like haven't been answered. Like God hears you and says in the scriptures that God collects tears. And so before we bounce, is there any last words you want to share with the people?
Yeah, that's the notes I had out of verse 23 is basically that, is God hears you.
Yeah.
No matter what your difficult time is, your pain, your struggle. The hard part is we want our struggles gone instantly.
Oh, for sure.
Right. We want them done yesterday. And that's sometimes the challenge of faith is trusting God's timing and that he knows better. You know, like, well, why in the world were they slaves in Egypt for 430 years? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know. But guess what? God's bigger than me and he knows.
Yep.
And my job isn't try to figure all that out. My job is to look through it and trust.
100%.
But the other thing is even if you're going through difficult times, here's the other note I took. Don't stop living. Keep living during the difficult times. Press on. Right? We all go through difficult kind of wilderness wanderings. We go through difficult dry seasons.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Press in there. Press on. Stay faithful. Keep crying out to God. Right. He hears you and he cares for you. His timing might be very different than yours and mine, but 100%. It is worth it. It's worth it when you hang in there with them. And then we see the redemption of Israel. We see incredible victory in the coming pages.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Read Exodus 3 and 4 as we continue to journey together. If you miss any of the weekend messages from Pastor Jason, I hope you would jump on our YouTube channel and check it out. But until we see y'all next time, go love God, love people, make disciples. You are sent.